Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Leo Koerich. This is the first ever video made in English. If you've been following me, maybe you speak Spanish, because I speak a lot in Portuguese. I'm from Brazil. I've been talking about how to become a dentist in the United States, and due to popular demand, people from Mexico, from Uruguay, from Argentina that have talked to me and asked how can they become dentists in the United States, I decided to make this lecture in English so everybody, wherever you are in the world, you can learn about how to practice here in the United States. Today, we're going to talk about 5 ways to become a dentist in the United States, specifically for foreign-trained dentists. If you're not a foreign-trained dentist, this is not going to work for you today. If you live in the United States and you didn't go through dental school yet, this is not going to work for you either. This is for whoever is a dentist in their own country and would like to move to the United States and become a dentist here. So I have a course, Revalida USA. It's for Brazilian folks. I speak everything in Portuguese, but some people found me and they start to learn what I can share, and they ask me to share a little bit of my expertise in English, so that's why I'm here for my very first video in English in my YouTube channel. But who is Leo Koerich? Who's this guy that's here speaking to you and trying to teach a little bit of how to become a dentist in the United States? So I was born and raised in Brazil, and I came to the United States a few different times as externship program. During my summer in Brazil, I would come and work in various jobs in the United States. That's when I started to learn a little bit about English language and become a better communicator in English, and also learn about American culture. I went back and forth 3 times while I was in dental school in Brazil. And eventually I moved here to do research in one of the schools. That was back in 2009. I got a job doing research at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill in the orthodontic department. While I was in school, I learned a lot, and I got even more excited about becoming a dentist in the United States. So I came back, and then I worked as a dental assistant for a while. Here's me working as dental assistant. And later I went through the international dental program at Virginia Commonwealth University, and here I am placing an implant in the lab. I have a long experience in the process of becoming a dentist, and I also have a long experience with research. I have over 20 published papers. If you were an orthodontist, chances are you may have read one of my papers. This was one of my very first papers published. This was in the American Journal of Orthodontics and Endofacial Orthopedics. Later on, I published another paper with Dr. Koerich from Belgium and the team from UNC. And one of these papers was actually selected as the cover for the American Journal of Orthodontics back in 2011-12. I can't even remember, but it's right here. And this was selected the best paper in the world that year for that journal, where we got the award from the American Journal of Orthodontics and Endofacial Orthopedics. You can also find my name on PubMed if you look for L. Koerich or L.K. De Paula, or on ResearchGate. You're going to find some of my papers and some of my publications. I also have published chapters in 3 different books. Here are the books that you're going to find my name. These 2 books are in English. This first one with Dr. Capilla, this one with Dr. Cadioglu and Koerich, and this one is in Brazil. This is the only Portuguese book that I have. These 2 are in English. You're probably going to find them on Amazon. And here's part of my chapter talking about my research, which was with Cone-beam CT, cone-beam computer tomography. On top of that, I decided that I want to have my own office, so I went through the process, and today I have a private office in Charlotte, North Carolina. Me and my wife, she's an orthodontist, and we have the office Koerich Orthodontics. And here's my son in my office making this pose for the picture. So the goals for the lecture today are plain and simple. I want you to get to know 5 ways to become a dentist in the United States, and I want you to learn the disadvantages and advantages of each one of the options. Why is this so important? United States has 50 states, and each state has its own rule about how can you work as a dentist. Some of them are pretty similar, but some of them are quite different. So the path that you're going to choose is going to dictate which state you can work, pretty much. So it's very important for you to plan how you're going to get your degree, and that's going to determine how you're going to be able to work. For example, a lot of people, especially from Brazil, want to live in Florida. Well, there's certain ways that you can get a certain degree in the United States that will not allow you to work in Florida. So if you take one of those paths and then you want to go to Florida down the road, that's not going to work. So you have to know how to work in Florida specifically. Now, if you don't care about where you want to work, where you're going to work, then it doesn't really matter that much. But I can tell the vast majority of people that talk to me that want to learn how to become a dentist in the United States, usually they want to go to one specific state. So it's very important that you understand the rule of the state and how you're going to be able to get accepted there as a dentist. So the 5 ways to become a dentist, the 5 most common ways. Some people might say, well, I know about somebody who did slightly different and it's possible. Yes, there are some loopholes, let's call that, some ways that you can do something else different that might get you a degree, but there's such unique situations that I usually don't talk about them. My goal is to focus on the ones that are pretty much guarantee that you're gonna get there no matter what if you follow one of these paths. One of them is to become a professor. That's one option that you have to practice in the United States as a professor. The second option, it's called a limited license. It's a license that doesn't allow you to do everything, but you can work as a dentist, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit. The third option is a degree with an advanced general dentistry education program. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that, which is different than a specialty program. Specialty and advanced general dentistry education are slightly different, and I'll talk about this difference in a little bit. And last but not least, of course, the most common and well-known path, which is to obtain a DDS or DMD degree. All right, let's do number 1. Professor. What are the advantages of being a professor? First, you do not need a CODA accredited degree. If you've been doing your research about how to become a dentist in the United States, you saw that many states require you to have a degree from a CODA accredited school. CODA means Commission on Dental Accreditation. So pretty much all the schools in the US are accredited by the CODA. So you have to do a dental school in one of these schools, and then that allows you to apply for a license. Well, if you want to be a professor, many states do not require you to have a CODA accredited degree, which means you can have graduated from anywhere in the world. If you're suitable for that position and you can get a faculty license, which is a type of a limited license, you will be able to work in that school. But not every state allows you to do that, but many states do. That way, you do not have to go through school again to become a professor in the United States. There is pretty much no cost because you're applying for a position and you're not going through school again, so you can get this position without any cost. You're going to see later on that to go through school in the United States can be quite expensive. If you become a professor, there's no cost really for you. And it's a position where you have good salary and good benefits. You're going to learn that in the US, sometimes people work a lot here in the US, different than many countries, and the rules are many times that you get paid by the hour or per diem, they call, per day that you worked. And many dentists may not have, in private practitioners, may not have the greatest benefits. When you work in schools, usually schools provide good benefits for their professors. In addition to that, one of the things that people need to become a US resident is to get a visa or green card or some sort of thing that allows them to come and work. Well, if you don't have a way to get this done and the school hires you, basically they can sponsor your visa. They can sponsor a visa, and that way you can put your foot in the US and start your migration process. I'm not a lawyer, I'm just telling you things that plenty of my friends have gone through. I have many friends who got sponsored their visas to work in the United States because they were offered a job by a school. So that's a way for you to get yourself into the United States. Another advantage is that you have different job duties. Many times, if you're just in the clinic all day, every week, you may get tired of this. In school, you may do a little bit of clinic, you may do a little bit of teaching. You have the faculty practice clinic where you practice yourself many times. You do teaching with students, you can do research, you can do admin work. There are plenty of things that you can do. So there is a variety of work duties, so you're not always doing the same thing. For some people, that's an advantage. And many times you can have some more flexible hours of work. Those are some of the advantages. On the other hand, it's hard to get a position. There's only so many schools in the US. In Brazil, there's so many schools in Brazil. I know some countries in the world, they have so so many schools, so there's plenty of spots available for professors. Here you have a limited amount of schools, and not all the schools will be able to hire foreign trained dentists, so it's hard to get a position. Usually you need to have a strong background, which means if they don't know who you are or where you come from, or maybe the school that you came from, because they know where you came from, but they don't have much information about you, that makes it harder to hire you from a different country. Now, if you have done a lot of research, a lot of publications, and a lot of stuff in academia, you have a stronger background, that makes more appealing for them to hire you because they know a little bit more about you rather than what you're just saying. Another thing is that as a professional, as a professor, your professional growth is a little bit limited, and your financials are also limited as well, because usually professors start here and they don't go up to here by the time they're done with their careers. Usually they start here and next thing you know they're a little bit here. If you are a private practitioner, you start down low and you can grow really fast, and you can grow significantly. So you have a limited financial and professional growth as a professor compared to some other positions. And there are not too many options, like I said. Sometimes you may want to work in a state where they don't have a dental school, or you want to work in a city where they don't have a dental school. So it's not really up to you to decide where you're going. There are going to be the options, but you're going to have to go where there is a dental school. So your options to work are quite a bit limited. The next question people are going to ask is, am I a good candidate? Well, let's see. First, strong academic background. Most of people that I know, and I know plenty of people who became dentist professors in the United States, the vast majority of them from Brazil, but I know people from other countries as well. The vast majority of them had a strong academic background. PhD or a master's research in the US also is a strong thing to add to your application. If you are a dentist from another country and you do part of your research, or maybe you get a full ride scholarship to do a PhD or a master's in the United States, that makes your resume, your CV, a lot more appealing for the hiring committee and more likely to hire you. Plenty of people that I know personally did PhD or masters in the United States. They were planning to go back to Brazil. They ended up staying here because the school liked them. They love the United States, and that basically is a huge thing to add to your resume. That's what I call American experience. So maybe you don't have a PhD or a master's research that you did in the United States, but you did an externship. You spent some time here, you got to know some faculty, they know how well you are, how well you work, how good you are, so they become familiar with you. One of the things that you need, at least in the United States, Brazil applications for professor positions are very different in here, but here letters of recommendation are very important. So having an experience in the United States where people get to know you and have some networking are very important for your success when you're applying for a professor position. I have two good friends of mine who recently applied. They both got hired, and they all had this in common. They all had a strong academic background. They all had, one did not have PhD or master's in the US, but he had some experience in the United States. The other one did part of his PhD in the United States. And they both had connections to get good letter of recommendations from professors in the United States that said, I vouch for this guy. So this is very important. If you have questions, put your questions right here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with your friends, because I'm gonna keep bringing more interesting things for you guys who want to become a dentist in the United States. Second topic, let's talk about limited license. Limited license advantages. No more school. You basically don't have to go through school again to get a limited license. So that's very appealing to some people. No cost. You're gonna have to go through the process. Of course, there's gonna be a little bit of cost to apply for the license and take some exams and stuff like that. You're gonna have some cost, but it's not like the 50, 60, 70, sometimes $100,000 a year for school that you're gonna have when you go back through school pathway, okay? And you have a reasonably good income. Compared to what most countries, dentists in most countries make, this income from a limited license or from being a professor is relatively pretty good. However, it's way smaller than what a private practitioner can make. So it's a good income compared to what dentists make in other countries, but not as good as a private practitioner will make in the United States. These are some advantages of the limited license. The two most common states, there are some more, but the ones that are most common and most commonly talked about and that people go through the most because the process is a little bit easier is Massachusetts and Minnesota. Now there are some disadvantages. Limited work. You cannot do whatever you want. You're gonna have to basically, you're not gonna have any growth because you're always working under somebody. Oh, but I heard that you can work for 3 years somewhere and then you can get an unrestricted license. Well, there's a lot of ifs there. There's a lot of ifs. Assume that you're gonna have very, very limited growth if you have a limited license, okay? You're always relying on other people vouching for you. Always. You don't own your destiny. You basically have to have somebody signing for you for stuff, for you to be able to get a license, for you to be able to get this and that, you know? So that's another disadvantage. And last but not least, the places that you can work. For example, many places where you can work in Massachusetts are community health centers or prisons. One friend of mine worked in a prison, you know, so I don't know anybody in Massachusetts that worked in a private practice. So they're limited also in where they can work. If you have a question about limited license, leave it down here. I'm not an expert in limited license, but I can get help with some of my friends who got limited license in Massachusetts. Third option is a certificate in a non-specialty course. What is a certificate in a non-specialty course? I'm not sure how this works in many countries in the world. I know how it works in Brazil. Pretty much when you go for a grad school in Brazil, you have orthodontics, you have periodontics, prosthodontics, endodontics, oral surgery, you have all these specialties. In the United States, there are 2 courses that are considered a grad school, grad programs, but they are not a specialty itself. They are advanced education in general dentistry called AEGD. So basically you do extra school. AEGD can be either 1 to 2 years or also the GPR, General Practice Residency. These are 1 to 2 year program in the United States that you obtain a certificate at the end of your program. However, it's not really a specialty degree like orthodontics, endodontics, pediatric dentistry. It's a degree in general dentistry. It's an advanced education in general dentistry. So why is this important for you to know? Because if you have a specialty degree, some states will accept you. If you have a certificate degree in a non-specialty program, other states will accept you, and sometimes they're not the same. So both are grad programs, but where you're going to be able to work are going to be likely different states. Okay, so that's very important for you to know. Oh, by the way, AEGD, the main difference, I don't know all the tiny details, but usually when people talk about GPR and AEGD, GPR usually are hospital-based programs. Usually, hospital-based programs. AEGD are usually not focused only on the hospital side, but like doing more advanced procedures. However, I do know GPR programs that do a lot of advanced procedures, and I do know GPR programs that do a lot of like preparing patients. They're gonna have a heart surgery, they need to have full mouth extractions and stuff like that, you know. So they are different type of programs, so do your research before you're applying for a GPR or AEGD program to make sure it fits what you're looking for. Some advantages are that your cost to do one of these programs can be very low, sometimes free. Sometimes it's free, but can be very low compared to a DDS DMD program. So that's one advantage. There are some certificate programs that will cost you $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. You might think, well, that's a lot of money. Yes, but compared to a DDS DMD, some of DDS DMD programs are going to cost you $100,000. So it's way less than some of the general dentistry programs. There's a possibility that you can get a stipend. For those of you who don't know what a stipend is, think about stipend as basically a salary. You're going to get paid while you're in school. And the funny thing is, some programs may charge you a little bit of money, but they also may pay you a little bit of money. So you think, why don't they just like even things out and don't charge me? Well, I don't know, but that's the way it is. So you're gonna see some programs that they're gonna charge you a tuition, but they're gonna pay you a stipend. Okay, so not many options, but you can find a program that you're gonna get paid a salary if you attend that program. So that becomes very appealing for the foreign trained dentist to do one of these programs. And you have a higher level of education. Basically, you're not a dental student, you're in a grad program. So that's another, you're doing more advanced procedures. So if you're already a dentist in your country, you're doing stuff pretty well. Now you're learning some more advanced things. here in the United States. You can do complex procedures that you may not do in dental school. I did dental school, and some of the procedures we had to refer out because they were above the dental school level. So we refer them out to AEGD clinics within the school or to the specialists. You are allowed to work in few states, so it's a program that's going to cost you less or maybe nothing, and you can work in few states. For example, if you do a 2-year program in Florida, if you do a 2-year program AEGD and get your certificate, you can work in Florida. Now, if you do a 2-year specialty program, Florida won't allow you to work there, at least with the rules of today, So that's why it's important for you to know the rules of the states so you can plan your pathway according to the rules of the states that you would like to work. So with a certificate program in a known specialty, you can work in a few states. And technically speaking, it's a higher position than a DDS DMD student. So when you're a student here in an AEGD or GPR program, technically you are a doctor. Here you're not a doctor yet, because here they consider that you're already in advanced education. Here you're having school lectures with everything, with all the students that never graduated. Here your classmates, all of them graduated. So it's a higher position that you have compared to when you're doing dental school. Some of the disadvantages are your competition. The quality of your competition here is much higher compared to when you're applying to an international dental program. Why is that? Pretty much the vast majority of applicants for this advanced education, they graduated from a CODA, Commission Dental Accreditation, CODA accredited school in the United States or Canada. So it's easier to compare these folks that come from a school that's basically standardized the systems and things like that. They all speak English as either their first language or they've been here through long enough that their English is usually really good. Some of us foreign trained dentists, our English is not at that level that we wish as our first language, So the quality of our competition in this type of program, it's pretty high compared to a DDS DMD International Dental Program application. Also, limited schools. You see a list of a ton of schools that you can apply for this type of programs. But when you read the fine print says that for you to be eligible, one of the requirements is that you graduate from a CODA accredited school, CODA, CODA. You hear this name a lot during this lecture here because it's important. So you did not graduate from a CODA accredited school, therefore you're not eligible to apply. So you see this list of over 150 programs that you can apply. When you shrink down to the ones that you're really eligible, there are only very few schools that you can apply to. And also, I said you can work in a few states, but that's also a disadvantage. It's an advantage that you can work somewhere, but also a disadvantage because there's only so many places you can go to work. Okay, so be mindful about this. Number 4 is the specialty degree. What is the specialty degree? I like to say that it's a specialty recognized by the ADA, plus that specialty has a clinical component. Some people are going to say, Leo, but I heard a friend of mine did a specialty in public health and was able to get a degree, or not a degree, sorry, a license somewhere. I'm like, I've never heard of that. I've heard of that, just don't know personally somebody who has done it. So I don't recommend you go in a very, very different path to get your degree. For example, public health is a specialty according to the ADA, or maxillofacial radiology also, or maxillofacial pathology also. But their clinical component sometimes is not enough to grant you a license. Sometimes, I'm not saying always, but I say sometimes because I'm yet to see somebody who did these programs and got a license somewhere. Unless, of course, it's connected to a school. That's a different ballgame. So be mindful about this combo, recognized specialty plus clinical component. Also, be mindful about the fact that some specialties in your country may not be a specialty here in the United States. For example, implant dentistry in Brazil is considered a specialty, not here. Operative dentistry in Brazil is considered a specialty, not here. So be mindful about that. Some advantages of the specialties are specialty title. You get out of the school with your specialist title in endodontics, orthodontics, whatever you want to be a specialist, you have that title. You have more income potential, of course, compared to professors and limited license. As a specialist, you have more income potential, and it could be a cheaper path for you to do. And I say with this asterisk is here because it could be very expensive as well. I know schools that are free. You go for free. You don't pay a dime. I know programs that you charge you over $1,000 per year to attend school. So it could be cheaper, but not always. Another advantage is that you jump one step. Now you don't go through dental school. You go straight into specialty, straight where you want to learn that that sweet thing that you love to do. You have great growth potential, of course, compared to limited license and professors, and you go straight to your area of interest. For me, for example, I didn't want to have to do dental school again, but I did. You know, my main interest was orthodontics, but North Carolina didn't accept orthodontic specialty back then when I wanted to work here. So I had to go to dental school. I didn't have a way around. Some of these advantages, your competition, again, just like in the advanced education general dentistry programs, quality of your competition here is pretty high. It's pretty high, and the number of spots available is pretty low. So that makes it more challenging for you to get accepted in one of these programs. Now, disadvantage, limited amount of states that you can work. So if you do a specialty and you want to work in Florida, I'm sorry, you're not going to work in Florida. That's not going to work out, okay? And last but not least, application cost. Some folks here apply to 20, 25, close to 30 schools when they're applying to a specialty. Guess what? Each school is charging you $250, $300, $400 for application, each application. That's not included traveling costs. That's not including any of that. So you go to 5, 6 interviews. Next thing you know, you're spending over 20 grand in application, depending on where you live, just to sit down in an interview, say hi, and show yourself there. So the cost of application, these many programs can be quite expensive compared especially to an international dental program where honestly, most people that I know, most people that took my course and go under and follow my recommendation, rarely they apply for more than 6, 7 programs. I have like a guideline of how to set up your application. If you apply to 6, 7 programs and you follow a very strict path of like a preparation, chances are you're gonna get in. Here with a specialty, it's a different ball game. You're gonna spend a lot more money and your chances are lower. So not saying it's impossible. I know plenty of people who did it. Okay, I know plenty of people who did it, but it's more challenging. Fifth is the DDS-DMD path for international dental program. If you have questions about anything before, please leave a comment right here. Like the video, share with your friends, leave a comment, maybe a suggestion for next video, okay? Because I'm gonna bring some more interesting things to you guys who wanna be trained as a dentist in the United States. Let's talk about number 5. Let's get this going here. Some advantages of doing the DDS-DMD International Dental Program, not the regular DDS-DMD that people who go through college here do. So here's the difference. You should be aware of this difference already if you're this far in this video, but just in case, if you don't know the difference, in the United States, for you to go to dental school, you have to do college first. That's what some people call undergrad. Then you go through college, you apply to dental school. Then you go into dental school. In most countries around the world, Brazil is one of the examples, you don't have to do college, you go straight into dental school. So I was 17 years old when I got into dental school in Brazil. I finished high school, I was in dental school by the age of 17, by the age of 19 I was pulling teeth out, by the age I had just turned 22 when I graduated as a dentist. People in the United States, they usually go to college by the age 22, they're graduating from college and then they go to dental school. So this that I'm talking about is specifically for international dental program, because what's going to happen is the United States schools will accept your foreign trained dentist degree as a college / part of dental school, and then you join the dental school, whether it's in the 2nd or 3rd year or 2nd and a half year, you join there, you do the final steps of the dental school, okay? So this is for those folks, not who wants to do the whole college and dental school in the United States. So the advantages of a DDS-DMD International Dental Program are, basically you're accepted by all states. And I put this here because having the degree is one of the requirements. You need several different requirements. And I'm gonna use a friend of mine as an example. She wanted to work in New York. She had the degree required, but one of the requirements was a certain amount of credits for whatever course that she didn't have. So she had to take this course or something like that to be able to get the degree in New York. But that's because she didn't have the other requirements. If you have the DDS-MD degree, that's one of the major requirements to be accepted in all the states for you to work. The second advantage is that there are more spots available. Every single year, there's about over 1,000 people being accepted into dental schools as foreign trained dentists throughout the United States. Some schools will take over 60 people, some schools will take 2, 3, 4, 5. It really varies. But I did add up the numbers and you have over 1,000 spots available per year whenever I did the math in the United States. And lower quality of competition. The quality of the people competing with you, I'm not talking about the person itself, I'm talking about their application. The quality of their application is is not as high as somebody applying for specialty or advanced education. Why is that? Here, you're only competing with foreign trained dentists, okay? So the background of these people from a curriculum standpoint usually is not as strong as when you're applying for a specialty degree. So the quality of the applicants from a curriculum standpoint is not as strong when you apply to a DDS EMD. So you have more spots available here, international dental program, you have more spots available, and the candidates are not as strong as the ones applying for specialty, okay? So that makes this path extremely appealing for most people. Other advantages are the high income, of course, compared to a professor position or a limited license. You have higher chance of growth and income as a dentist with an unrestricted license, and it's easier to transfer. A lot of people talk about reciprocity, license by reciprocity, which is you work, I said before, you need several requirements to get a license in a certain state. One of them is the type of degree that you have. Let's say you have some requirements to work in state A, but not in state B. You don't have the requirements for state B. Now, you worked for 5 years in state A. Now state B is going to say, well, you have worked there for long enough and you fit all these other criteria that we also take into consideration. Now you can get your license right here in this state, okay? One of the biggest examples of one of the requirements to get your license, most of the times you need to go through the regional boards, which is the practice exam plus some other things, you know? Sometimes one state accepts the AEGD regional boards that another state doesn't accept. Well, to apply to this other state, you have to take another board. Or if you worked long enough, they might say, you know what, we'll waive this board requirement. You just come here and work because you've done 5 years plus you check all these other boxes. So it's easier to transfer if you have a DDS DMD degree. Now let's go and talk about the disadvantages here. Some of the disadvantages are, first, cost. Pretty much all the programs are going to be very expensive. Back when I was doing school, the cheapest one was maybe 60,000 up to 120. Today, the cheapest is probably going to be 80 grand up to 135, 140,000, $140,000 a year, not including your cost of living, just tuition and fees. So the cost is pretty high. Also, you are in a student position. The other specialty programs or advanced general education program, you are technically a doctor, your colleagues are a doctor, you're not a you're not a dentist, dental student, you are a doctor and your colleagues are a doctor. So you're here you are in a student position when you do a DDS TMD program and you're doing dental school again. So I put this with an asterisk because to some people that might be great, they might love it. For me, for example, I was an orthodontist in Brazil and I had to do dental school again. So I mean, I did root canals, I did crowns, I did a bridge, I did a canine to canine bridge, like canine to lateral, central, lateral, canine, again, 6 units bridge. Even I've never done that in Brazil in dental school. I've done a small bridge, 3 units bridge in Brazil, but in dental school, but never such a big bridge. And I had to do that again. It was fun. I don't want to have to do it again, but it was interesting experience. But some people may just love orthodontics or love endodontics or love pediatric dentistry. Well, you're going to have to do everything again. There's no way around. So to some people, that's a disadvantage. To some people, they may love that. They may love that. It really depends on where you are in your life and what you like to do. Okay? Questions? Leave it right here in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and I'm going to make a series of videos for you guys here, okay? Let's talk about the importance of this. Let's talk about the importance of this. First, let's say you're a married couple. I do a lot of consulting. I've done consulting for, gosh, more than 50 people at least so far. And in Brazil, a lot of couples are dentists. Now, John is a specialist, Mary is not. John only wants to do his specialty, Mary wants to be a general dentist. How are they going to go to different schools in different states? What kind of programs are they going to go to? Where do they want to live? That all has to be taken into consideration to decide how they're going to do their pathways to become a dentist. Because if John goes to a program that is different than Mary and they want to live in Florida, well, Florida doesn't accept John's program, John's degree. So what are they going to do now? They're going to have to go somewhere else. So when you're planning where you're going to work and what each person likes to do, that's very important for you to know what's going to be the easiest, sometimes the easiest way, sometimes the way that's going to make things the way you want so you can do your specialty or whatever, or sometimes you may have to change the state where you want to work based on your couple's goals. You know, some couples may be like, yeah, I'm fine with whatever. Some other ones may be like, no, I want to do X, Y, and Z. So you have to plan this before before you start applying, before you start doing all this, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You have to make a plan. So that's very important for you to know which pathway you're going to do besides start all that. Some people want to do a certain specialty. You know what? All I want to do is orthodontics, or all I want to do is endodontics. Well, that's going to be important, because if all you want to do, this goes in combination with living in a certain state. All you want to do is orthodontics, endodontics, and I'm going to use again the Florida as an example, because plenty of Brazilian folks wanted to live in Florida, and they're like, hey Leo, I cannot think about doing dental school again. Forget about it. I'm not doing dental school again. Like, sure, it sounds good. So where do you want to live? Oh, in Florida. Sorry, you cannot do a specialty and live in Florida, because that's the rule. Right now, that's the rule. So basically, you got to change your plan, you know? And if you go through all this process and then you get accepted to a school and then you realize that you cannot work in Florida, what are you going to do, you know? So plan what you want to do and where you want to live. That's very, very important. I like to say there are 3 questions. I'm going to make another video talking about this with you guys. There are 3 things that you have to take into consideration when you're making your plan. 3 things. Remember that. 1, what do you want to do? Because if you want to be a professor, if you want to do research, if you want to be a private practice clinician, or especially, all that is going to be different, the pathway that you're going to do. Okay? If you want to be a professor, you don't have to do any additional school. Okay? You can, but you don't have to. How much money you want to make and what's your growth potential? Some people want to make a ton of money. Some people are fine making average income. So if you're a limited license, you might do pretty well. If that's all you want for your life, great, you know? But if you want to grow more and more and more, maybe you're going to have to be a private practitioner. Okay. 3rd, once you know what you want to do, how much you want to make, where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? So you got to answer these 3 questions, and the combination of these 3 answers are going to give you the pathway to wherever you want to go in the United States. So I use a lot of Florida as an example, but let's say Texas. Texas right here, another very desired state. No state taxes so far as I know, which is a big plus. Great state to live in. And if you're a specialist, you can work in Texas. But let's say you work in Texas for 5 years as a specialist because you did the endodontic program and now you're in Texas, and then you're like, you know what? I want to move to Florida. I want to go to the Sunshine State. I want to be on the beach. I want to watch the Heat game, the basketball game. I just want to live the life in Florida, you know? Sorry, you're not going to be able to be a dentist in Florida if all you have is a specialty degree, okay? So it's very important for you to know where you want to live to decide your path of application. Let's finish up here. This is a table with some details, summary of everything that I talked about. Let's go here one by one. Let's go one by one here. So professor, it's a very low cost for you to become a professor because you don't have to go through school again. However, you have a very, very, very high geographic limitation. If you want to be a professor here where I live in Charlotte, I'm sorry, there's no dental school here. You can't live in Charlotte and be a professor. It just doesn't work. But you can go to other places. Now, your salary is low, but when I say low, it's not that it's low salary. It's low compared to being a private practitioner. It's still pretty high compared to what most people make in their own countries, like a Brazilian professor salary. This is pretty high. But when you compare these 5 positions here, your salary is low, okay? Your growth is also pretty low because you're always relying on somebody and there's only so much that you can grow within the profession. Now, limited license, again, the cost is very low. You don't have to go through school again, but your geographical limitation is extreme. Pretty much people either will go to Massachusetts or Minnesota, those 2 states that people talk about when they're getting limited license. Your salary is relatively low and your growth potential, pretty minimal growth potential if you are a limited license dentist working in one of these states. Now, if you want to do a certificate program in general dentistry, it can be pretty cheap, it can be high. Now, your geographical limitation is high, not very high, not extreme, but high because there's only a few states that allow you to work. Now, your salary and growth is pretty high compared to these 2 other ones, okay? Specialty, again, low to high cost, very high, not very high, high geographical limitation. Again, only certain states that you can work. High salary and high growth. And I put the high here underlined because if you look online, the average salary for specialists is higher than general dentists, the average. However, there are plenty of general dentists making more money than specialists. It really depends. On average, specialists tend to make more. That's why I put high underlined here. Now, DDS-TMD, which is what most people do, the cost is high. Oh, Leo, but I heard somebody did for free. I know, I heard too. There are very few unique situations where you can get for very low cost or free, even free. I have friends who have done that, but it's under very specific situations. Okay, as a rule of thumb, your cost to do a DDS-TMD international dental program is going to be high, higher than this and higher than this on average. Now, you don't have geographical limitation and your salary and growth are pretty high. So what should you do next? You probably wonder all this new information, you want to know what you should do next. Well, there's going to be another lecture coming to you guys here. There's going to be another lecture you're going to watch about my method of the things that are important for you to think about when making your path to become a dentist in the United States. Stay tuned. It's coming up. In the meantime, leave a comment here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, watch the videos. If you speak Spanish or maybe if you speak Portuguese, but maybe if you speak Spanish only, you can understand quite a few of my videos in Portuguese. You're going to have a great time watching them and learning a little bit about how to become a dentist in the United States. And I want to thank you for your time. You spent about quite a few minutes here with me that you could be doing something else. I appreciate the trust in my information, my knowledge here. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.